Welcome back to Profi Plays. I'm Profi, and we're going to be picking up here with Shadowdark, right? We are currently, this is like episode 28 or something like this. We've been doing this for a while. Right? Our party right now, right, is composed of four people, right? So we have Ishana, the human priest, right? We have Krogar, the half-orc fighter, Sage, the halfling wizard, who's the one that has been around with this party the longest, by the way. Um, he had some experiences, just put it that way. Right. And then we have Godfrey, the human thief. Right. So, kind of the overarching story, we started out with a totally different set of characters, and we revealed a um, calling it a plot is probably going too far because that suggests probably more thought than was actually happening in this. But there's a ghost, a vengeful ghost, right, of the wizard Laios, right, who has managed somehow to keep some of his magic as he is now on the other side of, uh, you know, eternity or whatever. So as a ghost, he is maintaining some of his power. And we particularly see that in control of things like animals and creatures, right? So in any case, there was a party that was going to go and try to acquire an artifact that was necessary in order to deal with his ghost. Unfortunately, that party failed, and Sage was the survivor of that party. Now, the question then was because Sage was not part of the original party, he didn't particularly care about dealing with Laios himself, right? He's not part of that conflict. But Sage's mentor, the sorceress Ophelia, was very interested in the fact that here we have a magic user, a wizard, that is keeping their power on the other side of the grave. So she thought, we want information about this person, this ghost, because finding out about how this happens, that that could be valuable. So we have a shift has occurred in terms of what the goal is, right? So we would, in fact, like to learn more about this wizard, what they have done. Right, so and you know what? I hadn't really phrased it that way before. As I think about it, I was just kind of, because one thing that Ophelia was very obvious to Ophelia was that there was no way that they were going to be able to go into the old dungeon where things went very badly with that party, with a party that had the same experience as that party. So what we really need is, in effect, some level of training to happen. But that has happened at this point. We do have our party has now leveled up to level 2, and while there isn't a huge, it's not like huge leaps and bounds difference, there is a big difference in terms of the number of hit points you get, and so how survivable an encounter would be. So the encounter that killed off most of the party before might not right at this point. Now, I still think it's probably a good idea for our party to perhaps get a little more experience, get some better stuff, maybe. So I think that we still want to do a little bit more training missions types of things, but I am kind of reconsidering how much we need to do that. In any case, so I'm not going to try to get them leveled up to like level 5 or something like that when they're level 2. I think maybe like a late 2 or early 3 might be enough for them to go back and reconsider entering the dungeon that was a problem before. Okay, so having said all of that, what has happened recently is they recently totally cleared a dungeon right here on our map, right? So in the mountains here, there's this dungeon. I forget what the name of it was. Oh, the Mossy Cavern, right? So they went to the Mossy Cavern, right? They cleared it out. They found some stuff, right? So now at this point, they do owe a tithe, right, to Hesto, which I believe is located in one of these abbeys. I'd have to double check exactly which one Hesto is located in, because Hesto is the one that provided Ishana to the party. So as Sage was recruiting people. They also owe similarly a tax or a tithe right, to Lord Bree, who lives in this castle here. So, and then we also want them, in addition to all of this, to go and explore another dungeon. Right? So that's all the stuff that's going on here. Uh, Now, in terms of their current location, I honestly don't remember very well where they were, except that it looks like they did go to this dungeon and cleared it. Okay, so I think that it was D4 was where it was. I think. I'm not 100% confident on that, to be perfectly honest. My notes are very bad. I don't remember what happened in that episode. But anyway, let's just say that we are still here, right? So now I have the choice. I can either go do my tithes, right? So go here and here, so pay the tax, pay the tithe, or right, I could go and explore another dungeon. So in terms of stuff, when I look, oh, we have plenty of inventory space. In particular, right now, Sage, our halfling wizard, he he's weirdly the strongest member of our party. But he can carry 15 items, and right now he only has 9. Right, so I think that's pretty good. Right, so he definitely has room to carry stuff. So all right, so I'd already decided based on leveling and all that that this dungeon is a sensible one to go to. Now I want to introduce a new thing here that I just found, and I'm excited to try it, and that is Shadows of the Wild. Because those who have been watching know that I am running this all based on the quick start version of Shadowdark. I haven't yet acquired the full version. I just want to see how far can I get with stuff that I don't have to pay for. Let's be honest, right? So one of the limitations is that in that supplement, not supplement, in the quick start, there really aren't overland travel rules. Right? Now, from what I understand, such rules do appear, at least in some form, right, in the actual core book if you get the full thing. But again, trying to go without that. So what I found though, just did some searching, and I found this Shadows of the Wild, which is a supplement. It's an overland travel and hex crawling rules supplement. It says this is designed to supplement the overland travel rules, the hex crawling rules that you find in Shadowdark. Interestingly, when I read through this, I can just use this. And this is something you get for free. Just do a quick Google search, Shadows of the Wild. Okay. All right, and I think it was posted on Reddit, if I remember right. Right, so the basic idea is this, and this also is going to help solve another problem that I have, and that I have been awful at trying to track time. It's, I just haven't paid attention to it. Right, so this requires you to track time. So we think about time not in terms of hours, but in terms of quarters of a day. Right, so you have 4 time periods. You have morning, midday, evening, and night. Now, these aren't necessarily each 6 hours, right? They're a little bit abstracted past that, but at the very least, we will have some rhythm in terms of knowing what we're doing time-wise. Another thing this does is it actually makes travel meaningful apart from just I enter a new hex, I do a random encounter check. Right? So this actually gives you choices, right? So the setup of this particular supplement is that every travel round, right, and a travel round would be one of those time frames. So morning, right, you have a choice of what to do, right? So you can choose from, and you can combine these in certain ways, but not everything is combinable. You can hike, you can lead the way, you can keep watch. Now those are all combinable. You have one person leading the way, you have somebody else keeping watch, and then everybody else just hiking. It's kind of the idea here. You can also make camp, right? Or you can rest, or you can explore, right? Or you can forage, hunt, or fish, kind of your choice of what you want to do based on the terrain where you're located. So those are the options that are available. So, what I'm going to do, again, based on my poor memory, I'm going to assume that I just got out of this dungeon. We are here in the mountains. And I think I actually want to go straight to this dungeon down here, which I think is a well-leveled dungeon for our purposes. Right, so in that case, what I'm going to do, we need to travel this way. Now, the travel rules are designed for a 6-mile hex. I have here, based on the sandbox generator, a 2-mile hex. Good news, we'll just say travel around. I can travel 3 times as far here. It's not hard to do that math. Okay, all right. So then, how is this going to work? Right. So right now, in terms of conditions, I'm going to say that conditions here, they don't seem particularly unsafe in the areas that I've been. Right. So I haven't found an unusual number of like really dangerous encounters. So I'm going to say that I'm going to roll based on it being safe. So here's what happens. So typical procedure is as follows. The GM declares the terrain type and the current travel round. Okay, we can do that. So I'm going to say that we are leaving in the morning. That gave us all time to rest, and I believe that I did actually have everybody rest, so they were just outside of the dungeon resting. I think that is what we did. I think it was this one. Right, so can I check? That was D4. D4 is the Mossy Chambers. Mossy Chambers, that was it. Okay. All right, I think this was the one that we went to. Yeah, we'll say it. So we start D4. So that's our location. We're at midday. And the terrain type, we're actually in the mountains here. And mountains would be considered either a difficult or arduous terrain, almost certainly, right? So it's not going to be easy for us to get out of these mountains in terms of hiking. Now, our goal, we want to end up down here. So I'm going to try to figure out how many travel rounds that would be. Right, so we have here, so, we have, so this would be difficult. So we have one, I'm just going to go by exits. That makes sense to me. Right, so we have one, two, three. We have a total of four hexes. Right, so we have four hexes we're traveling. These two are definitely difficult. These two are just forest. And it looks like they're relatively developed forest because there's a castle here. So I'm going to say that those are relatively easy terrain. Okay. Right, so hex per round of travel. If it's difficult terrain, then that would be half a hex is what you can do, which multiply by 3, so I can get through a hex and a half. Okay. Right, so let's just say that it's going to take me then, doing some rounding. Yeah, let's actually say that it takes a full round of travel to get out of here, full round of travel here, right? But then I can travel across the others, right, to get here. So it's one, two, yeah, so I can get there in one more. So it's going to take a total of 3 travel rounds, assuming everything goes well. So let's say that that is what it's going to take. Right, so we are here at midday. My options are hike, lead the way, keep watch, forage, make camp, rest, explore. Right, so I think the most obvious thing here is that we want to assign somebody to lead the way, somebody to keep watch, and then somebody else, right, to not somebody else. Everybody else is just hiking. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So leading the way. Now this is going to be based on intelligence. So whoever's leading the way is okay. So in this case, it's Sage. Sage is going to lead the way. Keeping watch is based on wisdom. So based on who's left, right, Krogar is going to be the one keeping watch, which that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Okay. So then I need to pull out my d20, and we'll see what happens. Right. Right, so Sage is leading the way. So this is a DC 12 int per travel round spent hiking. Okay. On failure, we spend a travel round but do not progress or leave the current hex. If no character elects leading the way while hiking, failure is automatic. DC may be increased based on terrain and circumstances at the GM's discretion. I don't want to make it any harder than it is. Yeah, so he has an int of +2 for his modifier. Let's see, we rolled a 12. 12 plus 2 is 14. Yep. So we did succeed in getting out of that hex. All right, so that's one thing we do. So travel around. We did move out of here, so then we end up D. What is that? So this is 4. So 2, 3, 4. Number is 14, 13, 12. So we're in 12. So we end up in D12. Oh, wait, I'm starting morning, not midday. So we decided to hike. Other things we need to do. So keeping watch, we need to do that check. All right, so the person keeping watch, this is a DC 12 wisdom check, so he's at a +1. Oh, and he passed there. Okay, so 15 plus 1, 16. So actually, it's not just passing. Uh, it is actually you get a bonus. So a distance roll bonus of 2. So that means when I make the distance roll for a random encounter, that I get kind of 2 additional, I guess, levels of distance there, which that could be potentially very useful in that it can allow us to decide, right, are we actually going to deal with this encounter or are we going to try to avoid it? So, so I guess I'll do this. I'll just give a +2 to that if we happen to end up with an encounter. All right. So that's that. Other things we need to do about hiking. Right. So hiking, we know that succeeding, we're going to move out of here from here to here. Right. So that was successful. It can be done up to 2 travel rounds in succession without any kind of penalty, but after that, we do need to start making con checks. Otherwise, we have to rest for 2 travel rounds before performing any other activity. Oop, goodness. All right. Oh, and what your DC check is depends on what your con check DC is depends on how many quarter days you've been hiking, which, okay, that makes sense. I mean, if you're hiking for like 48 hours straight, you're gonna probably need to rest. All right, you're gonna be falling apart at that point. All right, so we need to do a random encounter check. 4. Okay, so that would be no random encounter because a 1 is what triggers the random encounter. All right, cool. So the next one, we are starting here in the mountains, right? And then we're going to be hiking out here. So again, this is just 1 travel round necessary here. So in the midday, we're going to hike. I'm just jotting this down as hike because of just the other stuff we're automatically going to do. It feels obvious. You have to have somebody lead the way when you're hiking, otherwise you're just hiking circles automatically. Okay, so let's go ahead and try that. See what happens. So we've got Sage, and then again, it's +2. We need a 12 to get out. 11 plus 2, 13. That is enough to move us into A8. Now, I do have a choice here. So A8, that is a city we've been to before, right? So I do actually have that detailed somewhere. Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's the oh, it's not a city, it's a castle. It's the Castle Fire Rock, where Lord Vakesh is. I don't know that we have any particular reason that we need to go here. After all, Sage doesn't have any connection to these people. So I think it makes sense. We're probably just going to try to walk right past them and kind of ignore that. All right, which I hey, it's allowed. Let's also check then. So keeping watch was successful. And then do we have an encounter? We do not. All right, so we walked, no problem. And now we're here evening. So next step, I think we want to continue hiking. Now this time it's through forest, so I'm going to consider this to just be normal terrain, so we can move up to 6 miles, which would be 3 hexes. So we can make that move all the way over here without any other problems. Let's check about leading the way. Oh, leading the way was a fail. Okay, so evening comes and we are still in A8. All right, we tried hiking. We didn't actually get anywhere. We also had, forget it, that's the third hike in a row. I forgot about that. Well, I mean, we tried it, so let's see what happens. All right. So we failed to leave that hex, so we're stuck outside the castle. Oh, the fire rod. Oh goodness. And we failed that check as well, which means then who knows how close an encounter is going to be if one happens. And then finally, do we get an encounter? Oh, of course we do. Of course we do. Why wouldn't that happen? Right. So the hike failed. So I'm just gonna mark an X here. And then we do get an encounter. All right, so let's roll up this encounter. All right, for the encounter, I want to check what kind of area we're in. Right, so we are right here. So it's very possible we could have a faction encounter. That makes sense. There would be a faction associated with this. All right, so let's go ahead and pull out my encounter table. Right, so it's a 2d6 roll. I had another d6 around here somewhere. Oh, there it is. Okay, so I rolled a 10. 10 indicates it's a biome encounter. That means a monster has to be rolled or chosen, right, on a reasonable table. So here in this case, because we're in the forest, so it's going to be some kind of forest creature. Okay. Let's go ahead. I'm going to roll then first for level 4, and then I'll roll a d10 because I have a random encounter table here. And then if it's inappropriate, we'll just roll again or pick something close to this. So 4. 4 would be a Grick. So let's check what a Grick is. Okay. Would you find a Grick in the forest is the question. Okay, so Grick, it's a huge worm with 4 suckered tentacles and a snapping beak. Ew, that sounds terrible. Might it be in the forest? I mean, I would more likely expect it to be underground, but it's believable to me that it would be in a forest. Um, I mean, that's possible. Possible. Um, or but might there be a better match is another question. So when I look here, and it could be a moose instead, and I think you'd be much more likely to find a moose than a giant worm in the forest. Okay, so let's switch that up. Right, so it's a random encounter with a moose. Right, so let's find out how this encounter with the moose is going to go. Encounter moose. All right, and then so rolling up the details of this encounter. So first, distance. Distance I don't get any bonus on. Two. So they are near. That means within about 30 feet. So we are going through the forest. Sage has lost his way. Right? And we're just kind of come around some trees. There's a part where it's kind of thicker. We pull through, and there is a moose right there. Now, one thing that's amazing to me, right, is that I don't think I've ever actually seen a moose in real life. Like maybe in a zoo at some point when I was a child, but I don't think I've seen a moose in real life. So when I watch videos of a moose, it's just insane, right? Because I think that in my brain they're like the size of a deer, which I have seen fairly frequently in real life, but they're not. They're enormous. They're an enormous thing, which is why it's a level four creature, because they're in fact very dangerous and very large, right? So that would definitely potentially be an issue for us, depending on its mood. All right, so let's go ahead and check. So what is it doing? So we need to roll for activity. It's a 2d6 roll. Eight. So it is currently building or nesting. Oh, that's so the moose here, right, appears to be like kind of arranging an area in which it is going to be living. This is potentially very bad. It's so its reaction. So does our I don't know that a charisma modifier here would really apply because it's not like we can talk to the moose. I mean, I think maybe I'm going to go ahead and apply for Rogar, but like half. The Rogar has a charisma modifier plus four. Let's make it plus two. Oh, thank goodness. So the moose is curious. This is to our benefit. So random encounter to a moose, nesting but curious. So I think that is going to allow us to kind of leave it alone without it necessarily being aggressive toward us. So I think that roll was fantastic for our purposes. Don't have to fight a level four moose at the moment. Uh, so that's good. That's good. Okay, so it will leave us alone if we leave it alone, and we definitely want to leave it alone as far as that goes. At this point, we also need to check. We need to do a Constitution check. Ugh. Oh, God. Okay, so Constitution check for is it for everybody? Hiking for more than two requires a successful con check per the following table. On failure, the character must rest for two travel rounds before performing any other activity. All right, so we are now going to have to do a an encounter, not an encounter check, a con check for each of our characters to see do they have to rest? Because if they do, they have to rest for two travel rounds. And that means more possibility of encounters showing up, right, when that happens. Right, so let's go ahead and check this for people. So Sage first, rolling Constitution at a -1. Yep, he has to rest. So Sage has to rest. Rogar definitely has to rest. He has a -2 on con. Ishana does not have to rest. Okay, so and Godfrey is our best institution. Does have to rest. Okay, so the only one that can currently act is Ishana. All right, so we are having to rest for two rounds. That would be night has to be a rest, and then also morning has to be a rest. Now, the question is, what is Ishana going to do in that time? So here are some options, right? So could be foraging, possibly that could get us some rations. Now, making camp, what this activity does, it says the make camp activity ensures. Oh wait, it cannot be combined with any other activity. Oh well, there you have it. That's pretty straightforward. Right? It includes finding or making shelter and building a fire. Now, to build a fire, that requires, I believe it's 3 torches to build a campfire. Okay, so yeah, I think that's not happening. We're just lying on the forest floor to rest at this point. So what about? You know, I think since there are some people that have to rest, I don't think resting can necessarily be combined with anything. Yeah, yeah. So we're just all having to rest. All right, so let's go ahead and do some random encounter checks then. Again, one per round, so we're resting for 2 rounds. Nothing happens at night, and then in the morning, again, nothing happens. Okay. All right. So we are still here in A8, and then we can try hiking again. So I'm going to again attempt to hike here. Now this is midday. Now we're not under a lot of time pressure, I think. So that's something where it's like, oh no, we don't. If we don't get there before something, then they'll kidnap cutesy buttons or something. That's not going to happen, right? But I do at least have like keep some track of time because it's possible that maybe something will happen at some point, right? So we're again going to have to check the lead the way for Sage to see if Sage can get us from here to here. All right, Sage, you got to get a total of 12. You have a +2 for us, so come on, roll a 10 or higher. And we did. Okay, so we did make that. And how about our um, keeping watch? How did Rogar do on that? Remember, he gets a +1 on this wisdom check. Oh, yeah, fail. All right. And so no bonus on that. He's been failing miserably too. I'm curious. What happens if you roll a natural 1 on keep watch? Okay, nothing. It's just failed. Okay. Right, so the DC 12 is really just what kind of bonus you get on that distance roll, and we just don't get one. Okay. All right, so apparently, Hrogar is not very good at keeping watch. It's terrible. It's just terrible at it. But we do manage over the course of the middle of the day, right? We manage to walk to A10, where we arrive here outside of the dungeon. And let's go ahead and we need to make that one more check, don't we? Yes, yes, encounter check. So do we have an encounter? We do not. Okay. So there we go. We made it then to A10. Right. That means then next time we can head into this dungeon. Just so you know, the name of this dungeon, because hey, why not? Why not share that? Uh, A10 is the Lab of the Desecrated Ritual. Okay, so what this looks like. So we're now in a plains uh, biome. Right? And as we approach here, this is a wizard's tower. It appears to be of elven design, which is interesting because we haven't seen elves in a while. We know that they're around because we started with a couple elven characters, but we have not seen them recently, right? So there is a tower rising before us, right, in that standard Art Nouveau structure here rising up out of the plains, right? And we will be heading in next time. Right. So, thank you again for tuning in, and this is Profi signing off.